Hi, welcome back to my channel where we go beyond the buzzword, beyond the basics, and beyond the BS to really help you master marketing agility. Today's topic is a quick win, something that you can do right away that's going to get you closer to that summit of real marketing agility. This one is a big one. There's almost no other single thing that you could do that will help you get more agile in a very short amount of time. I'm talking, of course, about the almighty Kanban board. Now, there's lots of different variations on a Kanban board, and we're going to be walking through a couple of these in this video. The first one we're going to look at is something that will work for an individual. You can use it to visualize the work for just yourself. It will also work really well for a small team of 3, 4, 5 marketers. And then we'll go a little bit more advanced. We'll look at a board that you can use for a larger team, even something you could use to collaborate with other teams. Lots of different ways to use a board. We'll also be talking about some do's and don'ts to make sure that your board is working as hard as it possibly can. But before we dive into any of that, I have a quick favor to ask you. Please do subscribe to this channel. It really helps me know that you're enjoying the content that I'm producing. Drop me a comment if you liked this video or if you want to see something a little bit different. Definitely going to be listening to you and figuring out what kind of content I can make that's really going to help marketers be more agile. So with that out of the way, let's get into board design. Ability and transparency around our marketing process. Many of us have it in our heads. We know how things get done. We know how the sausage is made, but nobody else knows. And in order for them to access that information, they have to go through a lot of rigmarole. Even if we have a fancy project management tool or a Google Calendar or a spreadsheet of some kind, those are very specific, very detailed pieces of information that someone outside of our team is probably not going to look at. And even if they did, they're probably not going to be able to follow along and understand what they mean. So we make things like a Kanban board to become an information radiator. They should be very clear and open and easy to understand for people inside and outside of the team. This should work to cut down on a lot of status conversations. Hey, where's my project? Where's my task? It's right here on the board. You just look and you can see, and you don't need to talk to anyone to ask about it. It also really helps to identify bottlenecks in a system. If all of your cards are stuck in one stage of your board, we have an issue that needs to be addressed. Maybe that's a better process around reviews. Maybe that's an additional resource that we need to bring on to the team. Whatever it might be, the board will surface that and make it easier to tackle. So, boards are amazingly powerful. I want to tell you one quick story about a time that I began creating this visibility and what it did for the team that I was coaching. So, this group was doing a lot. I mean, they're marketers. We have a lot going on, right? Content team, marketing automation team, PR, internal comms. There was tons of stuff going on with this team, but it seemed like everything took forever. Nobody had any predictability, and the marketers were always busy, and yet nothing was getting actually released. So we went into this workshop to try to figure out what was going on. The very first thing that we did was to start just creating visibility. So we built their backlogs. We asked them, what are you planning to work on for the next month? Put it all out on sticky notes and put it on this wall right here so that we can see it. CMO was in the room. She starts walking around to see the visualization of what's coming up for all these teams, and she's shocked because everything at the top, everything that's about to be worked on is basic keep the lights on stuff, right? All the things that are just recurring, and a lot of them had sales owners of those activities that were really demanding marketing's help. And all of the really big, important strategic projects that the CMO was being evaluated on were down at the bottom of the lists. Clearly, they were not going to be worked on for a very long time, if ever. And so she, being in the room, said, shut it down, take this top third of hamster wheel recurring stuff that's really not crucial, but we do it because we've always done it. And she said, stop it. Anybody gives you problems with it, you send them to me, because I need my marketing team to focus on the value-added work. It was this enormous aha for everybody in the room, because now there was visibility and transparency into the marketing activities in a way that had never happened before. This is before we ever started doing any Agile practices like stand-up, like retrospectives. Just visibility is so very powerful. So with all that said, let's get into some actual board design. Okay. The next thing we need to do is to actually look at some boards. So I've pulled together a few examples for us to take a look at. This first one with the blue background was made in Trello. I'll put a link to it in the notes for the video. It's quite easy. You can get a free account, very intuitive to get started with. But you can see that we have on the far left here our backlog or prioritized to-do list. Call it a queue, call it a to-do list, whatever you want to do. The idea here is that your most important work is at the top and the least important work is at the bottom. So then once you grab something and start actually doing it, it is working. Someone is working on it. And then once it's completed from this stage, we move into testing and review, and then eventually that work item will get done, right? We want things to flow from left to right across the board. Ideally, they don't move backward, right? We only want them to move forward through the flow. This is a very straightforward workflow, could easily be used for a small team or an individual who needs to send their work to someone to be looked at. So one option, simple board done in Trello. This one is slightly more complex in that it has more stages, more workflows for things to go through. In this case, we have our to-do list, but there may be some activities that need to happen before work begins. Maybe we need to meet with stakeholders, maybe we need to gather requirements, and so while we're doing that, work is being defined, and it might sit in that column. Then it's actually in progress. Then we believe it's done, but perhaps it needs a final review by legal or something before it is accepted and actually leaves the workflow entirely. So that's another way, just a more detailed flow here, but the principles are exactly the same. We have columns that represent the stages of work. We want work to begin on the far left and end on the far right. One more slightly more advanced view that we have here. We've got our to-do, right? Now we have what's up next, where this person has chosen to choose 6 items that are the most important for them to do next. Only 3 can they be working on at any one time. These are known as WIP limits, and they'll be getting their own video, which I will link to below when it's available. But this is going to help them create focus on a few high priority items, right? So they have things that are up next, things that are actively being done right now, and then things that are done. The cool thing that they've done here as well is to split these columns in half to note meetings that they're going to be in, because those are going to take up time and prevent them from doing some of these activities they would like to get done, and then things they are waiting on that are outside of their flow. You could use this board for your own personal solo work. It could also work for a small team of, 3 or 4 people. Final version of boards that I want to look at, you can see that this has gone a lot more detailed. We've gotten into some super fancy board design now here. This is going to be what you need if you've got multiple different workflows happening within a single team, or you have lots of handoffs or other complexities that your board needs to create visibility around. So the main concept from this board that I want to introduce to you are these horizontal swim lanes, right? And now these upper ones are not continued across the board, but these lower ones have been a bit. This is not a team that I coached, and if I had, I would have encouraged them to go ahead and extend these horizontal lanes across the entire flow here, because right now we're not getting visibility into the amount of time the team is spending on different types of content, right? We don't know which of these cards belong in campaigns, which of these cards are actually part of content production, which are part of video, which are webinars, right? We don't have that granular view, which is the purpose of a horizontal swim lane, to create more specific information that you can get by just walking up to this board, and to really make sure the team is spending its time in the best way possible. What I also like about this board from a larger team perspective is that we have these other horizontal lanes down here. This one for improvements, those would be process improvements. So things the team has identified that they want to do to improve the way they work. Those have become actual cards that can then be visualized and worked on. This helps you avoid thinking, oh, it'd be nice if we could do this really cool new technique, but nobody really owns it. Nobody has time to focus on it. But when we create visibility around it, we actually devote time and effort to it. Likewise, we have operational cards here and other future process enhancements visualized here. So more detailed columns happening, right? We have in progress and done for development, in progress and done for editing, in progress and done for metrics definition, and the board continues down. This is a very complex workflow that is by no means required, but we've also added these horizontal lanes. We're getting more detail about a more complex scenario. And so you can see here that visualization is powerful and possible no matter how in-depth your process is. Okay, so now we've seen a few real boards in action, seen them out in the wild and how they really work. Hopefully that helps you have an idea of how you might be able to start your own board. A very basic to-do, doing, done is a great way for just about anybody or any team to start. So don't be afraid, go visualize, and it's going to be great. Take some photos, put them in the comments. I would really love to see what you all do. But before we part ways for now, I want to leave you with a few best practices, a few do's and don'ts about Kanban board setup so your board can work as hard as possible from day one. The first is to not overcomplicate things. You want the vast majority, if not all, of your team's work to go through the same columns, the same phases of work. If you end up with things that jump 3 or 4 columns all the time, the board may not be quite where it needs to be. It's okay to jump columns occasionally, and not all work is going to proceed exactly the same way, but overall we want this to be a workflow that's reflective of the realities of how work happens. The second thing is make sure you update the board. If you make it and then don't touch it again for 2 weeks, it is not reflective of what's really going on with the team. And then people are going to still have to come and talk to you and wonder about the status of things, and you're not getting all of the great benefits that you really want from your beautiful Kanban board. So if you're going to build it, keep it up to date and make sure that everybody is invested in moving their cards and keeping things active and current. You also don't want to get too complex with those horizontal swim lanes that we talked about. A very common error for larger teams, especially, smaller teams don't tend to do this, but large teams tend to fall into this trap a lot, is to make a horizontal lane for every single person on the team. That can be fine for a small team of 3 where we're fairly specialized and we want to see that everyone is distributing their effort well. But when you get into the teams that are 10 or 12 and you end up with so many horizontal lanes, it's visually overwhelming. And it's also not useful for us to understand the kind of work that's being done, right? We can't understand project level work or even task type work. All we know is what people are doing. And really, we want to focus on the team success, not on individual activities. Another topic that we'll be going into quite a bit more later. But key takeaway for board design is keep it simple at first, right? If you're looking at more than 10 vertical columns or more than 4 horizontal rows, reconsider. Take a hard look at what you're doing and ask yourself if you really need all of that detail, because you might not. And remember that a big reason we visualize work is to help the team, but it's also to help people outside of the team understand what we're doing. So the board should be simple, easy for someone to walk up, understand, and digest the activities of the team. So there you go. Nice, simple ways to start your board. You can go do it right now. Actually, you should do it right now. As soon as you turn off this video, go make your board, take a photo, share it with me. Would love to see it. Would love to give you some feedback if you're curious about whether you're headed in the right direction. Happy to take a look. Please do subscribe to updates for this channel. I'm going to be publishing new videos once a week in 2020, leading up to the launch of my brand new book, Mastering Marketing Agility. I would love to be able to send you an advanced copy, maybe give you a signed one. So be sure that you sign up for subscription to this channel, and I will see you very soon.